Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to our supervisor lecturer Dr. Mohamed Samsudeen Sajahan. I, Amanina Syakirah Binti Abdul Rahman, with my partner Aina Syafiqah, will present on our research in the title Factor Influencing Adoption of Cashless Payment Among Generation Z in Malaysia, Application on Unified Theory of Acceptance and Use of the Technology UTAUT. So, in this presentation, we will see on 9 items, which are the background of study, problem statement, research question, research objective, methodology, the findings, the research limitation, recommendation for the future research, and the conclusions. In the background, cashless payment refers to the financial transaction in which consumers make financial transactions in the absence of physical cash. Globally, cashless payment increased at a compound annual growth rate of 10.9% between 2015 and 2020. Meanwhile, in Asia, cashless transaction growth in the expected increase at 30.9% according to Research and Market 2020. Cashless payment method users in Asia are higher, starting at Singapore, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, and Vietnam. Among the contribution factors on the penetration globally, first one is the digitalization, second is increase of mobile payment and mobile applications, and the third one is the popularity of e-wallet. Around the globe, Generation Z is the highest user of cashless payment because Generation Z was born with the age of the technological development. In the problem statement, similar to the global trend in Malaysia, cashless payment also have gained popularity among Malaysians, especially among Generation Z, lately because they belong to very impatient group as they want very immediate result. The use of cashless payment in Malaysia can be observed in various sectors, including the public and the sector, as it can less money laundering and digital paper trail. In Malaysia, cashless payment is mainly penetrated by Generation Z because they represent 65% of the total population of active cashless payment users in Malaysia. So, among the cashless payment platform in Malaysia are Asia Big Pay, Maybank QR, Samsung Pay, Boost, and others. Plus, in policy, Malaysia government is undergoing a long-term plan for achieving a cashless society towards of existing technological development toward Revolution 4.0 industry. So, in this study, there are 6 research questions and 6 research objectives based on 4 independent variables and 1 dependent variable. So, we move to the conceptual framework. This figure shows the conceptual framework that consists 4 of the independent variables, which are performance expectancy, effort expectancy, social influence, and the facilitating conditions, and 1 dependent variable, which is adoption of cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. So, in this study, the researcher used quantitative method as a research design, help as a primary data, and run SPSS for the data analysis, and using purposive sampling technique. The population was 400 respondents was sample size, but only 384 respondents were usable. Researcher used Google Form questionnaire to collect data and level of analysis, which is individual, among Generation Z toward adoption of cashless payment in Malaysia. And there are 7 compartments of data measurement, which are: Part A is demographic question, Part B screening question, Part C performance expectancy, Part D effort expectancy, Part E social influence, Part F facilitating condition, and Part G adoption of cashless payment.
Next, I'll present about finding, research limitation, recommendation for future research, and conclusion. First is finding. The main point of finding consists of 6 in this study. The first finding is to know the extent adoption use of cashless payments among Generation Z in Malaysia. The first finding indicate that the majority of Generation Z in Malaysia shows the positive extent on the adoption use of cashless payments. As you can see in this table, the average mean score of 3 items in measuring the extent of adoption use of cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia is 4.483 above 3.50. The second finding based on the second research question is to know the positive relationship between performance expectancy and adoption use of cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. The result obtained for this study is R value equal to 0.816, P value equal to 0.001 less than 0.05. There is a strong positive relationship between performance expectancy and the use of cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. The finding implied that performance expectancy had significant with the use of cashless payments among Generation Z in Malaysia. Next, for the third finding based on the research question 3, there is a strong positive relationship between effort expectancy and the use of cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. The result obtained for this study is R value equal to 0.789, P value equal to 0.001 less than 0.05. The finding implied that effort expectancy had a significant with the use of cashless payments among Generation Z in Malaysia. There is a strong positive relationship between social influence and the use of cashless payments among Generation Z in Malaysia. The result obtained for this study is R value equal to 0.819, P value equal to 0.001 less than 0.05. The finding implied that social influence has a significant with the use of cashless payments among Generation Z in Malaysia. Next, there is a strong positive relationship between facilitating conditions toward the use of cashless payments among Generation Z in Malaysia. The result obtained for this study is R value 0.785, P value equal to 0.001 less than 0.05. The finding implied that social influence had a significant with the use of cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. Lastly, performance expectancy shows the highest beta value is 0.351 as compared to effort expectancy 0.076, social influence 0.343, and facilitating condition 0.194 of beta value. Thus, it can be concluded that performance expectancy is the most dominant factor toward adoption use of the cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. So basically, this research only has 2 research limitations, which is first limitation is this study focus on one selected generation, which is Generation Z, and the second limitation are this study only grounded on unified theory of acceptance and use of technology UTAUT, which is an integrated model used to identifying consumer acceptance and adoption of technology. Next, recommendation for future research. There are 2 recommendations for future research. The first recommendation is based on the first limitation of the study. The researcher can include the other generation, for example, Generation X, Generation Y, and baby boomers. Second recommendations are to mitigate the second limitations. The researcher can develop different models to investigate the factors that influence the adoption of cashless payments, entrepreneurial potential model, and the technology organization environment, because there are 2 models were suitable framework as it was being employed to investigate the adoption of cashless payments. In conclusion, this study was conducted to identify the factors that influence the adoption of the use of cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. This study also achieved all the research objectives, show a positive relationship between four variables toward adoption of use cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. In addition, this study also revealed that the most dominant factor of adoption use of cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. Performance expectancy is the most factor that influencing adoption of use of cashless payment among Generation Z in Malaysia. That's all from us. Thank you.
I know gold is not enough.